Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
I am a priest!
Are you sad to see a man's faith fail?
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Pint. It is all horror October. My name is Spooky John.
Ooh, ha, 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 ha. My name is Father Manster.
Ooh, Father Manster. So before we tell you what movie we're talking about, which is clear because you clicked on the link that says it, so I don't know why we can do this. But if you hadn't heard, go over to the Countdown podcast, our good buddies Paul and Wayne. And at this point, probably 2 weeks ago, Manster and I did our top 10 favorite Stephen King adaptations. It was basically like miniseries or movies, TV shows as well. We did that with those guys, and the movie that we are talking about tonight, in any of its incarnations, did not make anybody's list on that.
Right.
But Manster is the Stephen King guy, so let's get into it. Let's find out what he thought, and what I thought, about the brand new iteration of Salem's Lot.
And you never even saw any of the other ones, right?
None. I never saw the original. I know what Barlow the vampire looks like. I've seen the scene, which is also in this version, where he comes to the kitchen and like when they're at the table and
totally different, played out totally different, but yeah.
I've seen that, but yes. And I know it's David Soul, but I've never seen it. And I've got to admit, the fact that it was like a NBC miniseries and the fact that it's like 4 hours long dissuades me from watching it easily. But at some point I probably will. At some point, I might sit down. I'm curious enough about it. Now, you did not put this on our top 10,
no.
But our lists were combined. So if you had to make a top 10, would the 79 version have made it into your top 10, do you think?
When I was originally conceiving my list, it was in there. It was definitely in there. It's one of the very early Stephen King books. Second book. The book was creepy as fuck. I did like the adaptation, but when you go back now, like me, especially already seeing it a few times, it tends to bore me.
Okay.
But, that's just because I know everything, and the good scenes are still the good scenes, and I look forward to them, and they're great. But as a whole, I don't really want to sit through a 4-hour miniseries rewatch. But I do it every once in a while. Every 10 years or so.
The 2004 version or 3 version with Rob Lowe, that's also like a 4-hour miniseries, right? Or something?
Yeah, so I'll get into that in here. But I bought that recently while we were preparing for the Stephen King podcast. I just bought a bunch of stuff that I didn't have, some that I never saw, and that was one of them. And I have to say, I fell asleep through most of it, so I don't even recall anything about it.
Rob Lowe's good looks couldn't even keep you awake.
Nope. Even his hotness.
Even Rob Lowe's 9 on a scale of 7 hotness level couldn't get you there.
Right. But maybe.
Okay.
I'll try again, maybe 20 years from now.
All right.
All right. So let's get into this. It came out streaming on October 3rd of this year, 2024, on what they call Max. I don't know what it's going to be called like a year or two from now.
It was HBO Go at one point, HBO Max.
HBO Max, HBO Go, Max, fucking whatever. Screenplay and directed by Gary Doberman, who is a film, screenwriter and director. He wrote several of the Conjuring universe movies, the Annabelle stuff, the First Nun. He wrote It chapters 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
He also directed Annabelle Comes Home. Didn't see that one. And he wrote and produced the 2019 short-lived HBO TV series Swamp Thing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was canceled like right after its premiere episode.
Immediately.
And from what I've read, his approach to Stephen King, this in particular, but I think this and other Stephen King stuff he's done, is to be as true to the story as possible until it gets too unwieldy to be true to the story. Which happens a lot in books. Books go off on tangents and, you can't capture everything on screen.
Right.
So this is based on Salem's Lot, the 1976 book by Stephen King. This, like you said, is the third adaptation. 1979 CBS 2-episode miniseries starring David Soul, James Mason, and Lance Kerwin was the first one. And then 2004, Rob Lowe, Donald Sutherland, Andre Braugher, Rutger Hauer.
Yeah, I saw the cast of that one.
Yeah, good cast. Yeah. 2-episode TNT miniseries. So this was announced by New Line Cinema in April of 2019, with Gary Doberman set to be write the screenplay and for James Wan to produce. But the actual timeline after the announcement was going to be released on September 9th of 2022. So they were expecting some post-Labor Day success there. That got delayed by COVID-19. So that put it out another, not quite a year, but till April 21st, 2023. They lost that release date because another movie was coming out called Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, okay.
So didn't want to compete with that. So then they started looking to release it in October of 2023. And then you had the SAG-AFTRA strike, and basically it's alluded to a growing need for Max content.
Right. Yeah, because this was filmed in like 21, right?
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Then in February of 2024, Stephen King piped in. He's like, what the fuck's going on with my movie? So, he basically had no faith that maybe probably wasn't even going to come out. Who knows? And in March 24, they said, yeah, it's going to come out on Max. And then in August, they said it's going to come out on October 3rd. And from what I hear, it's going to be released in the UK and Ireland theatrically on October 11th. So just a few days from now.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was filmed mostly in Boston in September of 2021, and then some little outskirts, Ipswich, which is a little north of Boston on the coast, Sterling and Clinton, Mass, which is that's in Worcester County, kind of central Massachusetts. Nathan Barr and Elizabeth Scott composed the score for the film. Now, I really loved the intro music. I don't know if you paid much attention to that or not, but
I didn't. But are you talking about like during the credits where it's like all the microfiche and newspapers? Yeah. I'll talk about that later too. But that was cool. So I did like the music, and some other things I'll talk about is this movie, as you know. So we already said it's been 2 miniseries. So miniseries are like 2 hours, right? So it's 4 hours with commercials. It's a long book. There's a lot of characters, and this film was actually over 3 hours or 3 hours long. Yeah,
and
I read
cut
that.
a hell of a lot because it's now under 2. So they cut out a lot of stuff, which probably would have been some character building, and I guess an opening scene in the Marston house as well.
I've never read the book, and I've never seen the original miniseries or the new one, but just by watching this, and we'll talk about it, I could tell that this was cut for time because.
Right. That's a lot of my notes. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like the acts feels like there are 3 acts, but it feels like they're all compacted and like we get into it. And then sometimes, you say like, oh yeah, Evil Dead 2 gets right into it. That movie, you want to get right into it because you don't really need a lot of explanation, but like there's some stuff here that just like, let's just move on. Let's just move on.
Yeah, man, I want to start talking about it right now, but
Yeah.
I want to kind of wait. But yeah, there are times where you're watching it and you might even feel like, did I just like fast forward by accident? Are they like somewhere else and I'm not even aware how we got here?
Felt like that multiple times. I felt like I missed a line of dialogue or a scene. Yeah.
So one other thing else I'll mention about this, and this is just complete conjecture on my part, but they said the opening scene was cut, and I have a feeling that might have been the history of the Marston house.
It would make sense because there's something in the cast notes that I have that like I don't remember seeing him or that character in here, and I'm going to bring it up.
Right, I don't either, but so when we get to the character, you and I both met this character, this actor.
Yes,
who played this character, and I don't remember seeing him at all in this movie. So I have a feeling that he was because Marston was the name of the person. That's why this house has such an evil reputation because of that.
Right.
That John will get to. Who's in the cast of this?
My God, it's full of stars.
All right, so we're going to start off with the de facto star of the film is Lewis Pullman, son of Bill Pullman. And by the way,
you can never tell.
He makes faces sometimes. There's a scene at the very, 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 very end of the movie where he's in a car with another character. And he makes a face and he transforms into his dad.
Yeah.
It's crazy. He plays Ben Mears. Ben Mears is a author who grew up in Jerusalem's Lot. That's the name of the town, or as they call it, the Lot. And has come back for some inspiration for his next book. You might know Lewis Pullman from the TV show Outer Range with Josh Brolin. He was in Top Gun Maverick, where he played Bob. And in the upcoming Thunderbolts MCU film, they haven't announced who he's playing, but he is heavily, I guess, everybody thinks he's the Sentry. So the Sentry is a Marvel character that was created probably 20 years ago, but was retconned to have been a character that had been around since like the Golden Age. It was a whole thing. He's like a Superman stand-in kind of, and he just pops in and out of the Marvel universe once in a while, but he's never been heard of in the films. And a big part of his character is he's an amnesiac when they find him. He doesn't know anything about his history. And in the trailer for Thunderbolts, he's like the only normal guy when they all come together and nobody can figure out why he's part of it. And he doesn't seem to remember who he is. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Sentry, and that's kind of like the scuttlebutt.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Lee plays Susan Norton. I didn't recognize her. She's really good looking, but Gotham, a show called The Slap, and another show called Mozart in the Jungle. Terrible haircut though, man. Beautiful girl.
Kind of Dutch boy haircut,
Dutch boy. I mean, the movie takes place in 1975, year of my birth. But, Jesus Christ, Dutch boy haircut.
You said she was in Gotham?
It said she was like a recurring role. I don't know who she was.
Because I saw like maybe the first season of that show and it was all right. But I remember a young girl. I forget. Was it
That's
young
not her.
Selena Kyle? That's not her?
Not her, no.
Okay.
I know that's another actress. I know who that is. I can't remember her name. Alfre Woodard, 71 years old, by the way.
Yeah.
It looks fucking great.
She looks great.
Plays Dr. Cody. You might know her from things such as Scrooged, Blue Chips, the film with Nick Nolte and Shaquille O'Neal, and Star Trek First Contact, where very memorably she yells at Jean-Luc Picard, and something about a line, and then he yells back at her like, "The line has been crossed." He starts freaking out. It's like classic scene. Like, I don't go any further. He's yelling at her. Good stuff. Bill Camp plays Matthew Burke, who is a teacher and or principal of the local high school. You know that he's a New Englander because he wears a Red Sox jacket.
Yes.
You might know him from the film Joker, the first Joker. You might know him from The Killing of a Sacred Deer. But I'm going to tell you how I know Bill Camp. I don't know Bill Camp's face. I know his voice, and here's why. I am one of those weirdos that you hear about that watches like true crime stuff at night when I fall asleep. I find it comforting. They say it's a big red flag, so I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me. So Peter Thomas was the narrator for the show Forensic Files for 20 years that it was on, or 15 years that it was on, and he died. The show went off the air. When it came back a few years later as Forensic Files 2, Bill Camp is now the narrator of Forensic Files, and as every fucking line out of his mouth in this movie, I felt like I was waiting for him to say something like, they sprayed the room down with luminol. And like, cause he's just got one of those voices. So that's who Bill Camp is. You looked excited. What were you going to say?
May I say one other thing he was in?
Yeah.
Which I just mentioned his name the other day. You probably don't even remember. He was in The Outsider, Stephen King TV show that was on our top 10 list.
Oh, okay. All right.
He was very, very good in that.
Yeah, he's a good character actor. Spencer Treat Clark plays Mike Ryerson. He was mostly known as a child actor, but like in big fucking movies. He was the kid in Gladiator. He was the little kid that befriended fucking Russell Crowe's character. He was Bruce Willis's son in Unbreakable. And he was also in Mystic River. And he's all grown up and he looks the exact same as he did when he was a kid. William Sadler plays the sheriff, Parkins Gillespie. You know him as Death from Bill and Ted 2 and 3. He was the villain in Die Hard 2. And a film that came out a couple years ago, a pretty fun little indie horror film called VFW. Pilu Ajbag. Pilu Ajbak plays Richard Straker, who is the familiar, I guess, of our main vampire, Barlow. You might know him as the Pirate King in Game of Thrones. He was like the, what was his name? Greyjoy, right? He was the shitty uncle of Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah.
He was also in a great movie a couple years ago, World War II zombie film called Overlord. He was like the main
Yeah, that was
villain.
such a great movie.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
And here's something crazy about him. In the Danish dub of last year's Super Mario Brothers movie, he dubs Chris Pratt's voice. So over there, he is Mario. So when you see the Mario Brothers movie, he is the voice of Mario. Yeah. So, and then finally, we were just discussing it a second ago. It is in the cast list. Could not find him. No idea where this character came from. But in the role of Hubert Marston is Derek Mears. Derek Mears, who was in Friday the 13th, 2009 as Jason Voorhees. He was one of the Predators in 2010's Predators. And he was, as Lloyd mentioned, in the short-lived Swamp Thing series. He was Swamp Thing. And we met him at Terrificon.
Such a nice guy.
Super nice guy. And it was literally like the week that show got canceled. And we even said to him, like, oh, man, it's because I think I had seen the first 2 episodes and had said to him, man, I really like the show a lot. And he's like, hey, man, it's the breaks. It happened. He was like, had a good attitude about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
hey, he got paid. He doesn't have to put the Swamp Thing makeup on anymore. But yeah, but he is certainly not in this fucking movie.
No. May I add one more that I don't think you said? And if you did, I apologize for not hearing it. Did you say Jordan Preston Carter?
I did not.
As Mark Petrie?
He's awesome.
He's the biggest fucking badass in this movie.
Mark Petrie is such a fucking baller. Like, he is, I love this character.
He's what, maybe 12?
He's the actor's probably 12 or 13. In the movie, he makes a point that he's 11 3/4.
Oh, that is right.
He's 11 3/4. Incredible fucking little actor. And his character is just like, he's the exact opposite of like all these people in horror movies that don't learn right away.
Yep.
He double taps like the first person he kills, like the first vampire that he kills. He smashes him with a bat to make sure he's dead.
Yeah.
When it's not even obvious that like he's going to come back to life or anything. I love this kid.
Do you know in the original who played that character?
No.
Totally different age and everything. That was Lance Kerwin.
Okay. All right.
Remember those Lance TV shows? Lance at 15.
Yes.
Lance at 16.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. So we're in Jerusalem's Lot, Maine, which is a small town. We meet the Straker character, and he is going to like rent services from a handyman. And essentially he's telling this guy, you got to come to the Marston house. Do you know where it is? And right, Manchester. Right?
Who doesn't know where it is?
Everybody knows. It's this creepy looking fucking house.
It's like a psycho house, really.
It's a psycho house. Absolutely. It's on top of a bluff. It overlooks town, and it's got a reputation for being haunted or evil or both or everything. So he says, you got to show up there tonight. You're going to take, he calls him his master. You're going to take my master's property off of a truck. You're going to bring it down into the cellar. You're going to put it in the corner, and then you're going to come up and here's your money. Can you handle this? Can you be very careful with it? Sure. So they show up, him and his buddy. And when they go to open the truck up, what is sitting there, Manster? And it's not in disguise either.
What is sitting there when they pull the truck up? Jeez, other than the hatchway?
No, like what is it that they're pulling out?
Oh, it's a coffin, more or less. It's just a box. I don't know that it's not shaped like a coffin, right?
No, it's a box. Yeah, you're right. I'm confusing two different scenes.
Yeah, there's another scene where there is a coffin. But
yes, I'm confusing that scene.
A very heavy, looks like a plywood reinforced box.
And they bring it downstairs, and they go through the hatchway.
Yeah, there's no way you're carrying a heavy box like that down that hatchway.
No, two dudes, no.
Not that we know what it's filled with.
I would be so fucking irritated, too, if I had to, because there's no good way. Let me ask you, as a guy that's moved before, do you want to be the guy on the bottom or on the top? In a case like that?
Shit. Well, if you're the guy on the top, you're just not going to do anything.
Yeah.
All you're doing is keeping the top half from resting or hitting the ground.
Yeah, I want to be the top guy.
Yeah, the guy on the bottom is doing all the lifting.
Bottom guy's doing all the lifting, all the guiding. He has the most to lose.
But you know what? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go say it. Say it.
So if you're a guy on the bottom, you brace. You've got your arms, you've got your chest, you got that thing covered. If you're the guy on the top, you're squatting down. Your arms are between your legs. You're going to break your back, and you're probably going to slip. You're going to get fucking hurt if you're the top guy.
Your danger as the top guy is that you could slip.
Yeah.
You could break a leg or something along those lines. Your danger as the bottom guy is you could also slip, fall, and then have something giant, fucking just fuck you hard.
Do you ever dig up grass or sometimes I'll dig up a garden bed and you got to get all the clumps of grass and you get the dirt with it.
Yeah.
And then you fill up a wheelbarrow. By the time that wheelbarrow is full, which has a nice handle and wheels, that fucker is so heavy.
Oh yeah.
And that's maybe 1/5 of the size of a coffin.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of
probably less than that.
I'm not afraid of physical labor, but man, oh man, I hate moving heavy shit.
Yeah.
Because there's always just that, am I going to drop it? Am I going to break it? Is someone going to get hurt? When me and Lindsay moved into our apartment on right here in Wallingford in Judd Square, we lived on the 4th floor, and we carried Lindsay, and I think her dad and sister carried 2 couches up 4 flights of stairs.
Ugh.
What up? Look, I did my time, right? If someone ever says to me, John, can you help me move? I'm going to qualify it. What are you doing? Oh, I live on the 4th floor and I need a couch. I'm going to go, fuck you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how important you are to me. I don't care what we've been through, foxholes, whatever. I'm not doing it. I'm done.
How about if they say, friend to friend, as a fellow comic lover, I have 50 long boxes packed with comics and I need to get them up 4 flights of stairs.
How much does it cost to have it moved? Because I will front you half the money as a friend. As a friend and as someone who loves you, if you're telling me that you can't afford to have this moved, tell me what the bill would be. Okay, it's $200. Here's $100 right now. You save up for a couple weeks, you get them that other $100 and we'll be good to go. Right? No fucking way.
Yeah,
I'm past that age. I'm past that age. 90% of the reason that I would never sell my house, besides the fact that I just want to be here, is I don't ever want to move again. Ever.
No, it's not worth it. Yeah.
No.
I just painted the bottom of my fence yesterday, and I even had my kids with me to help, and I still, I could barely walk the next day.
Yeah, no, fuck it. So they drop this thing off, they break it, a bunch of dirt comes out, and they're like, this is weird. Let's get out of here. Nobody wants to be in the Marston house. So they kind of take off quick, and right as they're taking off, the thing starts to open up. Right. So they manage to get away.
The guy drops it too, right? The corner breaks and all this dirt comes out.
Yeah, they're not very careful about it. So they take off. So now we know that there's a coffin in the Marston house. And we move on and we start to meet different people in the town. We meet Ben Mears. He is stopped by the sheriff, who basically just, it's a small town. It's very Stephen King, right? You're an outsider. Everybody knows everybody here. Who are you? And he basically says, look, I'm Ben Mears. I'm a writer. I lived here till I was 9. My parents were killed in a car crash. And I was hoping to just kind of spend a couple weeks here and get a little bit of inspiration for my next book. He goes to rent a room. What is the situation with the rental place that he rents?
I guess he's just renting a room, but he goes to a real estate place first.
I didn't get that. Like,
maybe just looking for information. I don't know.
Yeah, you would think real estate people aren't going to want to tell you where to like rent rooms.
Yeah,
they want to sell you a place. So I was confused by that. But when he's there, he meets the Susan Norton character. She's the secretary, and she doesn't recognize him. She knows him from somewhere. Yeah. And why does she recognize him? Master?
She is reading a copy of his latest book with his picture on the back of it.
Yeah. So this is their little meet cute where they have that moment. Who else do we meet in the course of going through the town, Master?
Oh shit. Let's see. So this is the part in the book. The early on in the book, you get a lot of small town character building. You get a lot of that. You meet everybody in town. But so we meet Susan Norton.
We'll talk about Mark Petrie. His first scene is pretty great. The schoolyard scene.
Oh yeah, that's a great scene when he's out there and he's a new kid in town, right? And he's getting bullied by this bully in the playground. Who I think first pushes him or something like that, punches him
in the fucking face.
Yeah, punches him in the face. Yeah, and then he came after him a second time, but Mark, did a swift move where he kind of sideswiped him and pushed him, and that kid went down. And then he just played the whole, grabbed his arm, put it behind his back, said, "Say uncle," which he did, and he didn't give up. He kept saying, "Now say I'm a turd."
I do want to say that I understand this is a movie made in, 2021 for a current audience, but I felt like it was so unreal that a young black kid in Maine is getting bullied at school and they're not going there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was waiting for the kid to say that.
We can't go there now.
And we can't go there now. But I felt like it dropped a little of the realism. If you're going to make this kid a bully, let's just go all the way.
Because this movie is filled with realism.
Well, you know what I mean. Yeah. I just meant okay, at another end, it's good because they don't even look at his race, right? We're not worried about his race in this film.
Yeah, it's not even about that. It's just about being a new kid that they want to pick on.
Yeah, kind of refreshing.
Yeah. And then, of course, you see Bill Camp in the school. He's a school teacher, Matthew Burke. He's just writing a lesson, grading papers, whatever, and he hears a commotion outside. He looks, and he looks again. He's like, fuck, I got to get up and do something about this.
Yeah, goes out and breaks it up, kind of has words with Mark and just tells him, watch your back. And Mark makes friends with two brothers.
The Glick Boys.
The Glick Boys, the soon-to-be dead Glick Boys.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. So Mark goes home.
They go to his room and see all the monster stuff, and they sort of get a bond,
They bond, right. They have this bonding moment where Mark kind of tells him he's into all this cool, science fiction horror stuff. And they decide to go home. And as they're walking home, they get approached by Straker in his little spiffy mobile. He's got the top hat on. He's a real dandy, this fucking guy. Go ahead.
I want to do a little compare-contrast scenes. So when they go home in the original 79 show, they go through the woods, and you see them going through the woods, and it's dark and shadowy, and you don't see a whole lot. You hear a commotion and stuff, so you don't really see a lot. I love the way they did it in this movie with the silhouette of the woods.
Of him following them. Yeah.
It just almost even looks just like cardboard cutout trees.
Yeah.
And the background is this really bright, cyan, this actually bright but dark cyan with a pinkish purple above it. It's just a great scene, and the way the camera's panning across and the trees, the kids are moving through the trees. It's just really neat effect.
Yeah. They're walking and all of a sudden after they walked away, he offered him a ride home and they said no. So clearly he follows them in the woods, and then you see the silhouette of him behind them, and he ganks the one littler kid. But then they disappear, and then the brother can't find him. And then we skip ahead to a week or two later. It tells you so this has been a way to catch up on time. So the kid is missing. People have been looking for him. Bill Camp is now familiar with Ben Mears, who is sleeping with Susan, who he flirted with at the real estate office. It was kind of a clever way to move that portion of it forward.
Yeah, she came on to him real strong, too.
Oh, fuck yes. Fuck yes, she did.
I said I would be at the drive-in theater alone.
Yeah. And before we jump ahead, they do have a night at the drive-in theater where they hang out together. And we even like, look, I had never seen this before. I could tell the drive-in was going to be a heavy locale, because, you know, the way she was like, oh, looking around and this is who does this here and does that there. And I just felt like, even though I'd never heard it before, that this drive-in is going to be like a classic Stephen King like moment. And it does end up being, you know, something for the end. Oh, go ahead.
Boy, there's so much I want to talk about. The drive-in is, I mean, maybe there was a drive-in in the original. I don't really remember, but that's all brand new.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So even the ending with all the cars?
No, the ending especially. Like I'm saying, I don't recall. Maybe there was a drive-in they went to during the course of the book or the original film or show, but I don't. The drive-in at the end is new. Act 3 is new.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus, I felt like that felt like original to me. That felt like, oh, the vampires, you know, and we're a spoiler podcast. The vampires are all hiding in the fucking trunks of the cars in the drive-in. Really interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I'll compare it. I'll try and remember the original. But yeah, another thing they did in here that I really don't remember from 79 is they show you the sacrifice of Ralphie in the Marston house.
Okay.
Remember when Straker brings him in the sack and he's like, "Master, you know, he's here." That I don't think they did that in the original. I don't remember that at all.
Because they don't really show him get killed, though.
No, but you know exactly what happens.
Oh, yeah. He fed him to a vampire.
Yep.
So Ralphie has been fed to the master, who Straker has mentioned at some point needs his strength. So like, it's very Dracula, right? Like he's made the trip over from Europe and he's, you know, he hasn't eaten. He's been probably eating rats, very similar to Dracula. And now he's going to feed upon the people of Salem's Lot. By the way, if you're listening right now and you hear me like pause to, Lloyd just keeps putting his finger up when he has a point to make. It's kind of funny. He doesn't normally do that. Sometimes once in a while there will be a moment like that, but like every time when I'm talking, because you know he's the Stephen King guy, his little finger just pops up into the screen, and that's why you might hear me go, yes, sir. What was it?
And I try not to talk over you when I have a thought, you know, but sometimes I do, so that's why I'm doing it.
It's fine. It's fine. The finger's very humorous. Ralphie goes missing. What happens next? Because the other boy ends up going too, and then is it Ralphie or the other boy that comes to Mark's house in the famous scene?
I'm trying to. So the first, Ralphie never comes back.
Right.
You don't ever see Ralphie, but his brother Danny goes looking for him.
Right.
And Danny goes into, I think it was a park, and you know he's like, maybe he sees something or hears something and he thinks it's Ralphie, but he's going to see him. And then he just get like pulled up into the air.
Yes.
You don't really see, you hear, you know, it's Barlow. But he just gets eliminated. And then after that, he comes back to, this is where you get Mark Petrie in his room and Danny is floating outside of his window.
Okay. That was Danny. Okay.
Yeah. So in the original, Ralphie floated outside Danny's window, and then the boys both floated outside of Mark's window. I might have that wrong, but yeah, there was 2 episodes of floating in the original.
Okay, so he's floating. He's dressed in his little, you know, right? He's in a suit of some sort.
Yeah.
Is it burial suit? Was that Ralph? That was Ralph then, right?
The second one was Danny. The gravedigger Mike Ryerson, because he's filling up the grave for Danny's funeral, and that's when he hears like the banging inside the coffin.
Yes.
And he goes to clear it out. And then Danny comes out.
Right? And then that's where he bites him.
Yeah. I got a little list here of everybody in this movie that was bitten, who turned them, and who eventually killed them with a stake.
So Mark is inside the room and the vampire kid comes to the window. Very famous scene from the original where he's like scratching at the panes of the window. But in this one, it's more like, you know, let me in. They don't really say it in this movie, at least that I remember, but I guess this is also part of vampire lore with you have to be invited inside.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist for all vampire lore, but it's heavy in vampire lore. You know, he's like, let me in, Mark, let me in. And his eyes are like all glowing weird and Mark at this point lets him in, right? Or Mark he hypnotizes Mark.
Yeah, he does that whole, what did we call it on the Dracula episode?
Oh, I don't remember.
We had a name for it, but yeah, he does that. He mesmerizes him, and when that happens, like their eyes sort of turn.
Right.
But he was able to. I think he was just sort of tricking Danny. I hope I'm getting the names all right. And then didn't he have a cross, or didn't he have something he reached for and he brought it out?
I don't remember if it's a cross, but he kills him right in the scene, like because the kid has.
Well, he gets him with the cross, I think, on the face or on the cheek or something.
Now, it's very interesting in this universe, or at least this version of this story, that whenever a cross comes into contact with a vampire, it lights up like a fucking flashlight.
Yeah, it glows real sweet.
Starts to glow. I was on the fence of liking it and thinking it looked like a cheap effect. I felt like it looked like a practical effect that was done like a flashlight, or I might have liked it more if it was like ethereal and like done with like CGI, but like where maybe it was like, it looked like a flame or something. It just looked kind of like a fucking flashlight.
It was video game-ish because I mean, there are video games where all of a sudden you can interact with something that will help you and it starts to glow.
Right. Yeah. It was. So he dispatches, this kid. And this is where he beats him, like with, like where the blood sprays across his face, and takes him out. So Mark is aware that there are vampires. Like you said, Mike Ryerson, the gravedigger, he ends up getting, killed by the other little kid who, while he's digging his grave, he falls asleep next to a tree after he eats a really sweet looking peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And when he wakes up, he doesn't do what I would do. If I woke up like 6 hours later and it was nighttime, I would be like, I'll fill that in tomorrow. But I'll give him credit. He goes to work. He fills the hole. But then he starts to hear like kicking and screaming, opens the casket. There's nothing happening. But of course, Boogie, jumps out and attacks him. So this is like where all the vampire stuff starts.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, we can talk about all of them, but there's so many. The whole town is getting turned at this point.
This is what I want to talk about with this, right? So Mike Ryerson, the kid,
right,
the gravedigger, shows up at Bill Camp.
He's like in a bar or something, or a restaurant.
He's in a bar, but then he ends
Bill's
up
like, "You don't look so good." Or not Bill, but Matthew Burke.
Matthew Burke sees him at a bar, takes him home. My first horrible thought was like that this guy is like a fucking sexual predator and like,
oh God,
was taking him home. I thought it was gonna go differently. I thought he's taking him home to fuck him and he's gonna find out the hard way. But no, he's just a concerned teacher, so I'm a bad person. But he takes him home and, puts him on his bed and he's just like sick as hell and he's saying like, I'm cold and like all this stuff. But then this is where Burke calls in Ben Mears and Susan. He tells them, you both have to come. And this is one of the scenes where I felt like I had fallen asleep, which I did not fall asleep during this. It's because Burke seems to know a lot about vampires, but like they never established, there was never an establishment or there was never an establishing line or part of the story that was like, oh, Jerusalem's Lot is known to be a vampire haven. There was none of that.
So that's the thing about this movie in particular. Everybody comes to the right conclusions right away and there's no misgivings.
Right.
It doesn't, and that's where a big failing of this movie is. In Stephen King books are all very character driven. He can paint a picture of a town and within 100 pages, you feel like you know everybody in town and you know this town.
Right.
This is just bam, bam, bam. We have to get from this scene to that scene to this scene to this scene. Nothing lingers. Even the scares, right, and the dread and the doom and all this feeling, that none of it lingers. So you're constantly just going to the next thing. And so, that kind of really kills it.
Yeah. Yeah. He basically says like, I know the vampire lore from my grandfather.
Yeah.
Right. And this is a vampire. Ryerson kind of escapes from the room and is crawling up on the roof of the house and doing all this crazy shit. And meanwhile, we have also already met, but now she's kind of become involved with this crew, Dr. Cody, played by
Alfre Woodard.
And so she's also involved. And you know, I can't remember exactly why, but like she's seen something that makes her believe. Like they all,
Right.
just
As
right
a
off the bat.
doctor, she believes right away.
Right away. She's like, right away.
A woman of science.
At one point, as they're trying to dispatch the Ryerson kid, she gets bitten by him.
Oh, they're
but they're able to save her.
Yeah.
With
that was
what?
Crazy. With a rabies shot.
Yeah, a rabies shot.
I don't know. What was it, like 28 days later? Wasn't that sort of like a rabies sort of thing?
It was a
rage.
virus.
It's like it was caused by rage and they likened it to rabies. But anyway, I've never heard that before with vampires.
Yeah.
The closest I've ever seen is one of my other favorite vampire movies, Near Dark, where they do turn vampires back.
Oh, blood transfusion.
Like a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
But a rabies shot that was really pushing it.
They save her with a rabies shot, but I've got to say, you know, again, jumping forward, I'm glad they saved her with the rabies shot because her death scene was fucking awesome. Because I did not expect it at all. And
I remember what it was.
It was out of fucking nowhere. But anyways, so they kill Ryerson at this point, right? They kill him after he bites her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm losing track of all the.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of like vampire.
He gets banished from Matt Burke's house, right? He was attacking Matt Burke.
Yes.
But he managed to get him to go. He says, "I revoke my invitation."
Yes. So
I don't think it works that way, but
no. Well, hey, maybe. So they start to try to come together with Mark, who they find. The streets are getting very empty. The sheriff has decided to bail on the town. He made it very clear in his first interaction with Ben Mears that he was not don't make me do work is what he says, right?
Yeah.
So he clearly wasn't going to protect the town when it needed it. And Alfred Woodard's like, you're a fucking coward. And he's like, I'm going to be alive. So he takes off. So it now has become very apparent that whatever is living in the Marston house is taking over this town. And they kind of get together to try to figure out how they're going to move past this. There is also a priest that we mentioned earlier that's involved. He's like the town drunk, but he is able to help them to a certain degree.
Yeah, the priest is a pretty big character in this story.
Yeah. At one point, Mark shows up to the church while they're kind of regrouping at the church, and he shows up and he's just like, he's got a bag full of steaks and he's loading up canteens with holy water because he's already like, this is what's happening.
He's ready to kick ass.
Right. And so they decide that they're going to try to figure out how to find the master vampire and what they have to do from there. But first, let's get our loved ones together. So Susan wants to go home and get her mother, and Mark wants to go home and get his parents. So we go to Susan's house, and she does not like fucking Ben Mears because she wanted Susan to fall for this other fucking Lance something or
what the hell was his name? I don't know. Floyd Tibbets.
Some fucking Guido in town, and she's having none of it. But when they show up to her house, she's talking real pro Dracula. she's like, oh, by the way, Susan, I met a man, and he's going to take care of me.
Oh, and that's because we didn't talk about it, but Straker was taken out by Mark Petrie, or did you say that? And
no, you know what? Okay, again, getting it mixed up a little bit.
There's just so much going on because this movie just jumps from one scene to another.
Right.
It hits all the high points of the story.
So jump back a little bit. You've listened to The Pint. You know this happens. Jump back a little bit. You got to remember, folks, there's a lot of podcasts out there that do it all by notes. I don't have anything in front of me. I'm just going pure memory. So that's probably why the show sucks so bad. Yes. Straker kidnaps Mark earlier and brings him back to feed him to Barlow.
Yeah.
He gets loose and fucking that's who he does kill the other vampire kid, but that's who he double taps. He beats the fuck out of Straker, who's a human, right? This is like Mark kills
he doesn't kill him, but he beats the fuck out of him with like a tire iron or something.
Oh, does he show up again?
Yeah, he's not dead, but I'm pretty sure we don't see it, but I think Barlow had enough that, that's it. That's the end of you. So that's why he made who you're going to talk about in a minute his new familiar.
Okay. All right. So Mark just fucking rips shit all over Straker with a tire iron. They get back to the house. Oh, I've got this new boyfriend. He's wonderful. And as long as I protect him during, I love this. This is what people look for on dating sites. Like, if you're willing to protect me during the day from my enemies, we could be together forever. And she's just like all about that. She's like, he's so sweet. All I got to do is just watch his coffin during the day, and he's going to grant me with eternal life.
It's so crazy.
It's so fucking crazy. And Susan's just like, well, what the fuck's happening?
It's Barlow. His name is Kurt Barlow.
Yeah, Kurt Barlow. That's a strong German name, I think.
Yeah.
And then as Susan is talking to the mother, Right. Where does he appear from?
So, well, they make a point a few times in this movie to show mirrors. And you see a lot of the scenes that you might think you're looking directly at a character, you're looking at a mirror. So you're looking at a character in a mirror with nobody next to them. And then they pan back to the character, and then you see the vampire next to him.
Right.
So that's what happened with this guy. He was just in the dark hallway on the side of the stairs. I don't even know what character that was.
That was
Did you
Floyd.
recognize? Oh, that was Floyd. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was fucking Guido Sarducci.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he locks onto her, right? Like
Father Sarducci.
Yeah, Father Sarducci. He gets a bite on her.
Yeah, he does.
He fucking clamps down on her, and then Mears, I think, kills him or gets her away from him, and then fucking Mama.
That's when they go to the church. Yeah.
And Mama Duke starts fucking shotgunning the place up.
Yeah, she's following him. Yep.
They get to the church, which they have designated as like the Alamo, and everybody's like, Susan's dead, man. You got to let her go. And he will not let her go.
No.
Right? She's snapping.
Just get her back with a rabies shot.
Yeah. They're like, no, listen. Alfred Woodward's like, listen, like it worked for me because what happened? They used the cross and it didn't bother her.
Yeah.
Right. Like they gave her the rabies shot. They used the cross. It didn't light up and it didn't bother her. But as soon as they crossed the plane of the church, Susan's freaking the fuck out.
She's just writhing and turning and her skin's all pale.
Yeah. So Susan ends up getting away. She runs away at this point, and they regroup. Where does the priest get it? The priest goes back to Mark's house.
So
Mark.
This is the iconic. So the priest, Father Callahan, he's losing faith, right? He's not sure of God and all that, and he's losing faith. But he goes to Mark Petrie's house, his mother and father. And they're all planning that this is what we have to do. There's vampires in town. This is what we have to do. And Mark's mother and father are there, and the priest is there. And the parents are like, "No, go up to your room. We'll take care of it. Let the adults handle this."
Yeah.
The father goes outside because he hears something. He doesn't come back right away. It flashes back to the inside, and Father Callahan is like in the doorway, and his mother is in the kitchen, and Barlow comes out from the kitchen from like a hallway. I think in the original, he crashed through a window or something like that.
And this is like the first time we see Barlow like in full
on. Like we've seen a lot of flashes of him, but this is full on facial, the side of his head, his eyes, everything. He's a
Nosferatu vampire. He's one of those like white ass Spock looking motherfuckers, bald.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's compare you know what Barlow looks like.
Yeah.
In 79.
Yeah, much scarier in 79.
He's blue. He does have the like yellow ringed eyes. He's got the two front gnarly fangs.
Yeah.
He's blue, but he's very, I want to say, maybe it's just makeup effects, but it's like modeled, This guy, this new Barlow, he's very shiny, very, very shiny, white. And then he's got these like red veins that almost look like like the flames on a hot rod.
His lower jaw looked like a different color almost.
Yeah, and his lower jaw is like pointed.
Yeah,
he's got that long pointed nose. So he's cool looking, but he's not as badass looking as 79.
It's the difference between CGI and practical effects.
Was it all CGI on them?
I don't know if it was all CGI, but he looked to me like he was CGI to an extent.
He was too sleek looking for an ancient vampire for me.
Yes, agreed.
If they would have had Pete the vampire from What We Do in the Shadows, that would have been great.
Yeah, Peter. Yeah, Peter's awesome. That's a great Nosferatu looking vampire. Very scary in a funny setting. So he bites the mom. The father gets got out in the front lawn. So like nothing's going good here. And the priest tells Mark to run, right? The priest is like, get out of here now.
Yeah. And he tries with the crucifix or the cross to get Barlow. and Barlow just laughs at him.
Yeah, and then we don't see him die, but they pan outside of the house, and you hear this as Mark's running. You hear the priest screaming.
Yeah.
So Mark now meets up with Dr. Cody and Ben Mears, and they're trying to figure out where everybody in town could be. Suddenly,
turns out they're all on the roofs everywhere.
Yeah, they're watching them from the roofs, but then the next morning they're trying to figure out like where they're like nesting, and I think Ben is the one who is like, "There's no cars anywhere." Right, like there's no cars anywhere.
Yeah, you're right. That's what they figure out.
So they figured, okay, the drive-in. This is a giant parking lot essentially, and it's a good place to store bodies during the day. So they go to the drive-in, and this is where like the final battle ensues. They eventually do find one of the trunks that is storing Susan, but as they're going to try to either kill or save Susan if they think they can. This is a great scene. Dr. Cody is kind of like telling Mark that she's willing to do the job he can't do. And then she just gets fucking shot off a screen, like with a shotgun and blasted across the screen by Mama Duke's, Dracula's wife. She's just fucking going nutty.
A grapefruit, probably even bigger size hole right through her chest.
I jumped. I admittedly jumped when Alfred Woodard bought it in this because I did not see that coming.
How did you like so it was like, I would say, what do you call that? Dusk, twilight. The sun was going down. It's like when you get that really bright sun that's right over the trees. Well, in this case, right over the drive-in movie screen.
Right.
So you've got a big shadow in front of the movie screen. And, shit's going down and vampires are starting to come out of trunks of cars. And Mark has a brilliant idea.
I liked the idea of this ending where it's like they're racing against dusk. We've seen it before. Like it's done pretty well. Like where you see the shadow, moving across to where, and as the shadow's moving across, the trunks are opening because they can get out. And like you said, so as Ben is like fighting off vampires and doing it against this like timer of the sun, he gets overwhelmed at one point.
Totally.
And Mark is like, fuck it. There's a bunch of cars here and I'm a badass. And I even said, I go, knock that fucking screen down. And I'm
nice.
Like, I don't know. Again, I'm just like, I'm figuring that's going to be the comment. That's the low hanging fruit. This fucking badass kid gets in this like 70s ass car and then just drives. And this could not, in real life, there's no way you would have driven through all of the pylons and knocked that screen over in one shot. You might have gotten through one and then wrapped the car around the second one. But this fucking kid, just fucking, as the badass that he is, he drives through like 6 of these wooden supports and knocks that gigantic fucking driving screen over. And as it knocks over, the sun blasts the field. So all these vampires get fucking burned. And this is actually a pretty good scene because like
it was great. Yeah.
Ben is fighting off 3 of them. They're on fire. He's like trying to get out from under these fiery bodies. And then we've just got all these fiery bodies like walking around. I like that.
It was a good scene. Yeah. It was definitely good. Mark is so cool. And if you're going to end up in a drive-in car trunk casket, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So this is the end where they realize they haven't found Barlow yet. So they start to look around, and where do they find him, Manster?
I think he just he's there. He's in that's right. So there's like a truck parked with some kind of, I don't know, let's just call it a milk truck or something. And they open up the back of it and they see the coffin in there. This time a real coffin.
That's where the coffin comes in.
Yeah,
not the first scene.
A fancier looking
coffin.
Yeah.
Like engraved on the top, yeah.
Yeah, he's able to just pull it out, no problem. Lands on the ground in the sunlight. But you see the shadow of the sun and the trees and everything just slowly encroaching on that. And that Barlow's coming out. He's frantically trying to open it so he could stake him, but he does not open it in time. It gets completely covered by shadow.
Yeah, and then Barlow does get out, and a struggle ensues. Essentially, him and Ben. Right now, is it him fighting Ben or him fighting Mark when he gets got through the head with the
Mark was underneath. Was it Mark? Yeah, it was Mark underneath because it's just him and Mark at that point.
Yeah, him and Mark at that point. I think Ben gets knocked down.
So I didn't quite understand what was going on. Mark is sort of like underneath, like I won't even say catacombs, but he's underneath something. And Barlow is obviously above it. I don't know if it's like piled up cars or something.
Yeah, I think it was almost like a junkyard. Almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And he keeps reaching down. Oh, but before that, there's a great scene of Barlow up on the roof with the like moonlight or something behind him.
Yeah.
Shining. That was pretty cool visually. But he keeps reaching down and just barely missing Mark. And meanwhile, Ben is somewhere else, I think, just frantically trying to find something to kill Barlow with. And he does. Like Barlow's head and whole face comes down. Mark is on the ground facing up, and Barlow's head comes down like right above his, and he's just about to get him. And then you see a stake coming through the back of Barlow's head, through his mouth, which doesn't kill a vampire because you got to do their heart.
Yeah.
But that ended that. So it was cool when he pulled the stake out and you're looking from Mark's perspective up through Barlow's mouth, through the hole, and you see Ben in the background.
Yeah.
Good shot.
And then they end up in the car together, and this is where we see the real Bill Pullman of Lewis Pullman. And they kind of have a conversation about like moving on, right? Like let's just get the fuck out of this town.
Yeah. That's what they do in the original. They move on and they start killing vampires everywhere else.
Yeah. So that's the end. That's 2024's Salem's Lot.
Yeah. We should put a disclaimer in front of this. Just don't listen if you want to see the movie.
Nah, we put the movie
first.
There's a spoiler. Everybody knows. Everybody knows.
All right.
We got that spoiler thing at the front. All right. Well, we're not going to talk about the box office because this is a Max film. So let's jump right into it. Let's rate this fucking thing, kids.
Are those your grades?
Yeah. I don't think that I deserved an F. Do you?
0 to 5. 0 being the worst thing ever. 5 being the best thing ever. Quarter and half scale optional. I'll go first. I'll give Master a little bit of time to collect his thoughts and not give this a 5 just because it's Stephen King. So I've been hearing a lot of people are not like happy with this. Again, I have perspective different from other people. I've never read the book. I've never seen either miniseries. So this is essentially a fresh movie to me, despite some of the things. I know Barlow. I know the kid at the window. I know some of that stuff. It definitely feels rushed. Like, even without knowing the story, like we talked about, they jump through things so quickly. And like you said, characters figure things out without much thought behind it, right? Like there aren't like well, what else could this be?
Right.
No, it's
vampires don't really exist.
Right. It's fucking vampires, period. I said it. Yeah. That's it. Dr. Cody jumps to it. Everybody jumps to vampires. I would have liked it better if there was backstory as to why. Like, hey, Jerusalem's Lot has had issues with vampires periodically, in the past. It's happened before. It could happen again. But they don't do that. The cast is pretty good. Lewis Pullman is fine. I don't know if he's like necessarily like, leading man material, but he's not a leading man. This is an ensemble cast. Bill Camp is good. The kid who plays Mark is great. Really liked him a lot. Straker, I would have liked a little bit more out of him. He could have been maybe a little bit creepier of a character or shown up a little bit more. But again, we're doing a 2-hour movie based on a probably 700-page book and also based on a 4-hour miniseries. This is the Cliff's Note version of Salem's Lot, right? Like they're in and out.
That is my very first line on my rating.
Okay. All right. Well, I stole it from you. So I guess when I think of movies that are of a certain subgenre, this is a vampire film. One of the first things I think of is this going to be anybody on Earth's favorite vampire movie? And the answer is no, right? It could be Near Dark, or it could be The Lost Boys, or it could be Bram Stoker's Dracula, right? There's some that just rise above, and there are some, like that are not as popular that still could be 30 Days of Night. I could see why someone might be like, that's my favorite because the vampires are creepy and they're in this like dark, there's an interesting element to the plot. This is not going to be anybody's favorite vampire movie. As a horror movie, and we're in All Horror October, it's not necessarily very scary, right? I mean, there are moments Like, there's some little kid death. That's not cool. We see kids coming back as vampires. That's frightening. But really, there wasn't much. Alfre Woodard's death made me jump, and that's just a jump scare from a shotgun blast. It wasn't like, the whole beginning, the first scene of the movie where these two guys are moving the coffin into the basement. Like, okay, think of the words I just said. Coffin, basement.
Yes.
That all these things should be scary. It's not even scary. It's played almost more for laughs. But it looks good. It's well made. Again, the cast was fine. I didn't hate it. I'm not going to rush out and buy the Blu-ray. If it's on in the background, I wouldn't be mad at it, but I couldn't go more than like a 2.75. I think I'm going to give it a 2.75. There's a very good chance that if I was familiar with the original Salem's Lot or the book, I might be lower, but I'm going to give it a 2.75. Master, what do you got?
All right. I have about 2 pages of notes on my ratings, and I'm jumping all over the place. So forgive me if I repeat myself or if it's very scattered, but I got a lot of notes. So Cliff Notes, that's my first thing. I'll try and say stuff I like. I like the style. It's got some good style to it. Like I said, that scene with the Glick boys going through the woods, with the silhouette and the bright colors, I feel like they should have tried to gone with that a little bit more with some neat things. I had occasional scares. I think it just lacks like real terror that you want in a movie like this, especially a Stephen King vampire movie. You want to have some kind of real scares, but nothing lingers long enough to be really scary or unsettling. It's just moving from one thing to the next. It's just hitting all the high points of the book. Pilo Asbach. He is so underused. I don't want to say it should be like the old one because, it's a new version, but James Mason Straker was threatening and menacing. This guy could have been that. I liked the actor. I think he could have done so much more if he had more to do, if he had something more interesting to do.
Yeah,
but,
he
has
a
couple scenes, and it's so bad. I wish this guy could have had a better character to work with. I like some creepy stuff about it, like when you see the vampires on the houses and like the misty backgrounds, and when Mark was up in his treehouse and he's closing all the windows, and then all these kid vampires are all in the tree and like wanting to come in. That was creepy. That's good stuff. That's what I want to see. And I want to have more of that feeling throughout the movie. The drive-in scene. So it's cool. I like what they did with the drive-in, with the screen coming down in the sun. That's cool. But let me tell you, Stephen King vampires, they don't just like gather en masse in a drive-in theater. They hang out in the fucking lair with their master, right? That's not vile enough for real vampires. And like we said, the story is so compressed. So there's a reason this story has been told twice in a miniseries. It's just too long to do in a single film. I mean, this is not a book as long as it, all right? But it's dense and it's got a lot of characterization in it. And it's just too long of a book to be put into a little movie. This was a 3-hour movie that they had to cut. They cut everything out that probably, made it make more sense. Not that it doesn't make sense, but it just jumps from here to there all the time.
You could have made it make more sense with 20 more minutes.
Yeah. It just wasn't enough. So basically, I wrote Cliff Notes, but it's like condensed milk. You just boil it down, take all the substance out, add a little sweetener, add some good like special effects, and there you go. That's what you get.
Yeah.
So this is the condensed milk version of what you really want. Everybody comes to these right conclusions so quickly, and you just want them a little bit of, being scared for a while, other than trying to kick ass for a while. There's a indulge me, if you will. I got the book off of my shelf, and I just remember reading this as a young teenager. So he's writing, who is this? I think this is Matt Burke, the teacher. He's like, I'm afraid. And in the awful heavy silence of the house, as he sat impotently in his bed with his face in his hands, he heard the high, sweet, evil laugh of a child, and then the sucking sounds. Right, and that's like the end of a chapter. And like, this was just filled with like these just chilling sort of images and stuff and thoughts. So, all that said, this is a more rewatchable movie than the original. Because you can get in, you can get out, you can get all your vampire stuff. And if that's all you want, you're good to go. Otherwise, you're going to have to commit, like about 3.5 hours.
Right.
I don't know that a lot of people have time to do that. So that's why there's probably not a lot of rewatch of the original. Yeah, what'd you give it? I have written down here 2.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 2.75.
Yeah, 2.75. All right, yeah, 2.5. And I don't hate it. I just wish it had time to sort of just like breathe a little bit more.
Yeah, I didn't hate it either. I don't picture it being something I go back to ever again. Without reason, without, it just happens to be on, or someone I know, hey, I've never seen this. Let's watch this. Okay, sure. But yeah, it's not a standout in any way, shape, or form, right? Like there's not a lot of like King's movies tend to have more wet farts than Shawshank Redemptions. But that being said, some of them have like, hey, this one's fun. This one had, Maximum Overdrive is a piece of shit, but it's fun. Yeah. Right? You might buy the 4K of Maximum Overdrive because, oh, cool. It's got the Green Goblin truck and it's fun. And, there's a bonus AC/DC music video. But like Salem's Lot, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, let's do that again tonight. 2024 at the very least. So yeah. All right. So that's it for that. All Horror October continues for the rest of the month, even over on the Pint Insider. Go to Patreon/thepint. $2.50 a month will get you all kinds of extra content. And as Master would normally tell you, you can find us on, Instagram and Threads at The Pint Podcast. Go to Facebook, check us out there. And Manster, one more time, let's shout it out again. Tell everybody about our friends over at The Countdown and the episode we did.
Yeah, we just did a top 10 Stephen King adaptations over at The Countdown. They are winding down. We were episode 491.
Yeah.
They're finishing at 500 in their current manifestation. I guess they'll do a much lesser thing in the future, but I would recommend go check them out. Go check out that episode. We've done a few others over there, or at least one other.
Yeah, we did one. We did top 10 80s comedies.
That's right. And then Paul did a couple with us.
Yes.
And then I always think we've done live stream together, but we've never done it, but we both are involved.
They're like 48 hours ahead of us, so it's impossible. You got to get a time machine to record these fucking Australians. It's crazy. But yeah, so that's been it. All Horror October. We will talk to you next week. See ya.
Bye.
It's over, Johnny. It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.